Yes, we have a lot of testimonies tonight, so we're just going to get through the announcements. We don't really have that many. We just have next week, the 13th, we have our Together event with Together event. Did I say that right? Yes. Together event. Okay, with 8 other prayer rooms all around the country. And so each hour there's going to be a different prayer room streaming. We have the 7 a.m. set, so we're doing intercession at 7 a.m. And then every hour we're going to be streaming in a different prayer room that we're connected to all around the country. So it's going to be really cool. And yeah, I'm really excited. We also have a 12-hour burn at the Spanish prayer room in San Leandro. So 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on August 30th. Yeah. It's going to be really cool. They're leading it, and then we are doing an intercession set with them. I'm going to do a Devo in like the middle of the night. So, yeah, it's going to be really fun. Let me know if you want more details about like the address and stuff, because I don't have that memorized. But, yeah, I'll put it in Signal too. All right, testimonies. Who's our first victim? Okay.
1,000 testimonies. Okay. Today is Ann Norris's birthday. Woo! Our beloved Ann, who prayed longer than anybody I've ever known. Like, we met her when we first moved here. And it was always in prayer meetings. I was always in a prayer meeting with Ann, way before we started the prayer room, okay? Ann loved to pray. There was nobody like her. So I texted her sister today, who lives in Israel, to just say, thinking of Ann. And Marceline got right back to me. She said, thank you, Amy. I felt today a powerful intercession from heaven, from Ann, at the end of a Saturday prayer call for Israel that Mom and Ann and I have been a part of for about 2 decades. I felt lots of powerful love flowing down from heaven over us. Such a treat to hear from you on Ann's birthday. I shared with Claire today that Ann's last days, although we didn't know they were full of doing exactly what she loved so much, being with Claire and family, and being able to be with you and Dan and her magnificent team from 5 to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday. She was always here, in that corner usually. Thank you, Amy. Go team, as Ann would say. Go team. Ann's description of her prayer room is so right. We have had such a push in getting ready for what is ahead, and today we have had and felt such peace. When I awoke, I saw stretched above us here in Israel a canopy of his love, bouncing up and off anything that should try to fly up and upon Israel. Then I realized this was the bridal huppah stretched across beloved Israel. Thank you, Amy, for this gift to hear from you today on my beautiful sister Ann Elizabeth's birthday. So awesome to hear from Marceline in Israel and how she feels this peace.
Where is she in Israel?
She's kind of down south, south of Jerusalem, like I think in the Beersheba area, so pretty south, maybe even I think it's pretty desert down there. I don't know exactly the town. So that's my testimony. And short ones before we have the Young Life crew take it over. Yes, Cindy.
It's the same topic.
I love it.
I shared it with Amy, and she's like, you got to share it. So in 1 week, 2 encouraging words. We pray for the youth on Friday. Out of the blue, one of my friends texts and says her son, who happens to be at a famous college in London that I forget the name of, anyway, on a summer thing, more than one of his friends out of the blue asked him about Jesus, and he did nothing. And then my beloved nephew, I've been praying for my family, he became a believer, and he sent me a video of him. He got baptized a year later. That is like just amazing. And I know I'm on a YouTube thing, but I'll just say, sometimes, I'm just going to make a general statement, sometimes the least likely person is the first. So, okay, who's next for testimony? Driver. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a brand new driver.
After a very long time of trying to get my license, I finally got it. Yeah, through prayers, guys. Funny story was I was supposed to take it on Tuesday. I ended up booking the wrong appointment for Tracy, and they're like, sorry. And the only thing I could get was the day after I left for Dallas. And I was like, well, I can't do anything about that. And my sweet coworkers from my job were like, no, we're going to look and keep refreshing the page and keep looking for appointments for you. And we finally got one, and I passed. And it was beautiful. My test was like 7 minutes long, which is like so short. And then my second testimony, Lizzie's finally coming back tonight. So she's going to be back in town. We all miss her and love her so much. Who's up next? Up next? Young Life.
Okay, yay. Thank you, all of you, so much. We could not have done the summer without the prayer cover. There's just no way. Ken and I, at the end of the summer, just kind of stared at each other like, did we really do all that? We really did. So with the Lord's strength. So I'll just give you a quick overview, and then we'll have some specific stories, which will hopefully encourage you quite a bit. Oh, okay. So I'm Jeanette Thralls, married to Ken, and I've been the Young Life Area Director for 24 years, and yay! We've been doing the same Young Life Club at Granada for 27 years or so, since 98. Yeah, we've been on that campus every day, all the time, constantly. I coach the diving team, so I'm there every day in the spring, and Ken's coaching JV football and anyway, we have a very pretty large presence on Granada campus with a lot of kids, and wear a lot of Young Life shirts. That helps spread the word. But so this summer, we do Young Life, which is high school, and we do Wildlife, which is middle school. And then during COVID, Ken started a backpacking ministry, which Dan's a part of. He's a guide, and Ken, and there's 6 guides. Anyway, so now we do discipleship backpacking trips also, offer them to our Young Life students, but also to students around the Bay Area or churches if they want to do it. So basically this summer we had, tell me if I'm wrong, 3 backpacking trips of discipleship nature. And then we had, for Wildlife, I take my 6th graders and I do it separately because they're like this high. They're really little compared to the 8th graders. So I take my little ones up to my cabin. So we do an adventure trip for 6th graders up to my cabin. It's a really awesome trip of 14 kids and about 24 people because you need a lot of support crew. And that was just a really sweet trip where kids got to hear the gospel, and they really responded. It was just an awesome introduction to being involved in Young Life and Wildlife, and they loved it, and we loved it. It was just great. So that was in June, along with the backpacking trips. And then after Josiah's wedding, I called that family camp, by the way, because I had my house was full. Anyway, it was a beautiful, wonderful time. It was pretty exhausting, but anyway, then after that, we had 2 really big trips. It was our Lost Canyon trip, and we took 7th and 8th graders. First, I took 7th and 8th graders, 51 of us with these shirts on the plane. We got on the plane in Oakland. Jordan was part of this. And we flew to Phoenix, had a charter bus come and take us up to camp. And camp's up near Flagstaff in a beautiful it's so pretty up there. We're in the mountains, 7,000 feet high. Anyway, 11 leaders and 40 kids. And these kids really got to hear the gospel in a way that they can get it. And we had a phenomenal group. We had 13 boys that were all 8th grade, going to be freshmen at Granada. Had just an incredible time. They all want to follow Jesus. Yeah.
they kind of knew about Jesus because we do a little Bible study every Friday in the park, but camp always like solidifies what they want to do, and it was really good. And then there's so much to say, but then we had about, Jordan, 30 girls, I don't know, 25 girls. We had a lot of girls. And I bring enough leaders so we can break them down into small groups so they hear the speaker give the message about the gospel, and then they get to process it in a small group. So that was the wildlife trip, really incredible trip. The girls, very open to Jesus, and once again, the middle school kids we take, they all want to follow Jesus. Now they get tested in high school, and then, we'll see how it all lands. But then I was home for a week, and then we went back with the high school kids. Same thing, 45 T-shirts in the airport. And we had like 10 leaders and 35 kids. And yeah. Yes. Matthew. Yes. All those, yeah, because you guys know all them. So, yeah. And one of my testimonies and praises is that my leaders were absolutely fantastic. Yes. Jordan was amazing. She went on the first trip, and then we got back, and I go, hey, Jordan, do you want to go on the second trip? We really need another person. And she did. It was really a testimony. We really needed her on both trips. And so part of your testimony can be, yeah. You know what I'm thinking. Anyway, I'll let Ken talk about this more, but last year we took like 30 boys, and it was really hard, and they were terrible boys. we could not handle them, and they really didn't want to follow Jesus. They just wanted to cause trouble. And someday we'll get through to them. We're still praying for them. But this year, it was totally different. It was like Gideon. God pared it down. I asked at least 30 boys to go on this trip, and we ended up with 7. Yeah, 7 boys. And I know. The thing is, these are the boys God chose for this year because every single one of them were deeply impacted. And the thing about it is none of them went with their friends. They were all 7 from different friend groups. And God needed to do that to do his thing. I'll let Ken talk about it more with the boys. It was just a joy to see these boys absolutely transformed and unbelievable. So I'll get up and tell a personal story about a kid in a minute, but do you want to? No, I'm done for a little bit. I'll be back.
I'll just rapid fire mine. But so Jeanette was like, Jordan, come to Young Life Camp. And I was like, oh my gosh. They've like been meeting up all throughout the year, like every week. And I was like, the first one was middle school, and I was like, these girls have never seen my face once in their life. Like, this is going to be so hard to just have them trust me and be vulnerable with me and walk alongside them in such a serious decision of their life. But that has impacted me so much. But like already in my heart, like I just love middle schoolers. That's when like the Lord encountered and met me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like Lord, do it through them. And I remember we get there, every single club, these girls are just like crying after the gospel message. And I'm like, what in the world? And like, at first I was kind of like, okay, like they're crying because each other are crying, or I don't know, but this just seems a little silly, but also like, Lord, I hope it's like real and intentional. And then in like quiet times, they would just like share what the Lord was like revealing to them. And they're like, that's why I was crying. And I was like, oh. So every day we had like a club twice a day, and they're just crying every time. And then they would hear a worship song. They'd be like, I just can't not cry. I was like, you guys are crazy, but it's okay. So amazing, just like the way the Lord has been tenderizing these girls' hearts at such a young age. And then this one really encouraged me. There was one girl who was in Jeanette's small group, but she was like, Jordan, I want to do my one-on-one with you. I want to talk with you. I want to hang out with you. I want to do all the things with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I even do for this girl to want to be around me so much? I'm kind of weird. And we end up like getting some ice cream or whatever, and we're talking, and she just starts sharing like what her life is like at home. And she's like, yeah, like my parents don't really support or like Christianity at all. Like my siblings are atheists and my parents don't like me attending Young Life and things like that. And they don't necessarily like do witchcraft or stuff, but they like believe in like different spirits and different like powers besides God. And so she's like, I go home and I just like feel the heaviness of those things. And she's like, but she's like, I've like tasted the fullness of Jesus since like being at camp. And like, I know that no matter what they say or what they think, like I want to follow Jesus. And I was like, what? Like that is so amazing. And just her like standing firm in that. And so I got to pray with her and we prayed over her family together. And it was just like the next day she like reached out to her family and she's like, hey, like, I don't know, but I really need stuff like Bible tabs for my Bible. I would really love to like buy a devotional. And they're like, oh my gosh, like we'll buy that for you, which is like unreal because I know they were like not on board for that. They were like, oh, like and then we prayed about it and we're like, Lord, like soften their hearts. And then the next day they were like, oh, like we want to buy you devotional and we want to buy you accessories for your Bible and all these things. And we love that you're like at camp. And she was like, this is like so not my parents. Like what is going on? And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, this is the heart of the Father. So just like the heart of the Father, and that was like really cool how he was softening her parents' heart. And just, I think they were seeing the way that she loved the Lord so much that they were like, what is this? And then, yeah, I go home and Jeanette on the last day is like, Jordan, will you come back to camp next week? And I was like, Jeanette, you're crazy. I'm exhausted. I have to work. I have to make money. I'm leaving for South Africa in less than 50 days. Whoop. And she was like, okay, like money, whatever, like pray about it and come with us. Like who cares? Pretty much. And I was like, ah. So I pray about it. I talk to my work and they're like, oh my gosh, like, of course, this is a great experience. Like, don't worry about it. And I was like, they're like, please go. And I'm like, what? I just missed a whole week and you want me to miss another week? This is weird. And so I was like, okay, like, Lord, I'll do it. And then literally on our bus ride to Lost Canyon from the airplane, I had zero money for my trip. And then in like an hour or so, I get all the money for plane tickets, which is like not cheap. And I was like, oh my gosh, like yeah, like $1,500 in the span of like an hour from people just being like, here's money for your trip to South Africa. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what the heck? Yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, wow, like this is confirmation that the Lord really does want me to be here because again, it was the same scenario where I was like, I know none of these high school girls. They don't know me. They've been with all their other leaders this entire year and all these things. And yeah, it was really, really sweet. Made some really sweet friendships with the girls. And then, yeah, the boys, I loved it. They were just so on fire for the Lord. And just this like one little silly story, super quick. We were like in the airport on the way home. Our like flight got canceled like 2 hours, so we're just sitting there on a layover, and like all the boys like whip out their Bibles and start reading them, and they're like, oh, I have questions, I need to read my Bible, like I'm gonna read as much as I can. And one of the boys walks in from like the bathroom and he goes, oh my gosh, why is everyone reading their Bible? And I was like, oh, he's like, that is so weird, like we're supposed to be doing like fun stuff right now. Like, let's like play cards or games or whatever. He's like, why is everyone reading their Bible? And everyone's like, read it with us. And then they just like all start reading their Bibles. And it was just really sweet. For like our 3-hour layover that got delayed, they're just like eating up that word. And then, yeah, they're like, yeah, I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Genesis, everything. And I was like, what in the world? Yeah, but we'll let you take the floor on the boys. Because, yeah, you know them best.
I think if you don't know, like when we go to camp, mostly there are kids that don't know the Lord at all. Their families don't participate in things usually, and that was pretty much the case this time. You have internet. I thought I was just talking to these people. Oh, okay. Okay. And hey, So, so yeah, just a little bit of context. That's the group, and we go throughout the year, and on campus to Granada and Livermore High. Some other leaders go there, but so primarily, I've been at Granada for, like Jeanette said, 20-some years. I just go to that campus for the most part, and I just get to know whoever I can, whatever kids I can get to know, and so I coach JV football. I'm an offensive line coach, so I'm just an assistant to. So I don't want all the other administrative and responsibilities. I just want to get to know the 50 kids, 60 kids that play football. So anyway, so we ask and invite throughout the year to have kids come to club on Monday nights and have kids come to camp in the summer. And this year we took, like Jeanette said, seven guys because we had to go. We got our third choice in a camp spot. And we put in choices based on the dates that most kids can go and on the proximity of the camp. So usually we'll go to a camp that's 3.5 hours away. But this time they gave us one that's, driving. It's like 14 hours away, but we flew to Phoenix. So it just makes it difficult. It makes it a lot more expensive for kids and for the whole trip. So that's part of the reason. But also, I was just reflecting with Jeanette. You just can't tell when we do these trips. We've taken, trips of 90 kids and trips of 20 kids to these outreach camps. And you just don't know, God's metrics and economy just aren't the same as ours, and we all know that in our lives and our experiences, but it's just hard when you're planning. Like, it'd be such a great camp for 100 kids to go to, and that you're just working and inviting and praying, and so we thank you for all the prayers, because on the way to camp I was just getting to know kids better and talking on the bus and the plane, and had some time to pray as we're going, and I just was praying, Lord, I would love to see fruit this camp, in our guys' cabin and in our group in general. I just love. Sometimes you just don't see that fruit. You know that kids are impacted because we have deep discussions and things, but you don't see that kids decide to change their life around and reorient their whole life, which it happens frequently, but sometimes you just don't see that, and so I was praying for that, and literally, I would say every kid, if they weren't, every kid in our cabin, which was, we had 7 guys, 7 students, and more leaders, 4 or 5 leaders. They all just really accepted, the invitation to follow the Lord. Kids that I would have said, probably, I would say probably a Christian. I don't know for sure, but in my discussion, my one-on-one with them, they're like, it's really risky to give your life fully to the Lord. I mean, how much is it that, this is kind of a cabin time discussion that I was having with, and he's like, he said, is it, when I would like to get married someday, is it, is it me that chooses my wife, or do I just sit by and then the Lord brings my wife to me? And I go, well, what do you think? I have some thoughts on that, and he said, ultimately, the bottom line is, he's like, it's really risky to give your full life to the Lord. I don't know about doing that. And I thought to myself, oh, so that's something you should kind of think about this week, maybe. That would be a growing edge for you. And, by the end of the week, he had, we had a lot of discussions about, like, what would the priorities in your life look like, if you were to follow Jesus? what would be the greatest commandment that he gave? And he knew that, I think. He knew that it was to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor as yourself. And so well, if you concentrate on that, could other things work out, like what college you go to and who you get married to, and if you put that as your priority, and so he started to kind of get how he could follow Jesus more fully, and ultimately he said, it still seems scary to me, but I want to give 100% of my life to Jesus, and then another student that I had a one-on-one with. The night before, I asked kids to put their, at the end of the cabin time discussion, and we'd had the crosstalk, and and we had not heard the speaker speak about the resurrection yet, but they had enough information to know, the gospel and what Jesus had done for them, and I said, I gave them all each a cup like this, and I said, if you are open to having Jesus fully to get him in your life, put your cup up. And if you still have questions about that and not really ready for that, then put your cup sideways because you still have some questions. And everybody was at the point they weren't going to, I won't turn this upside down, but they weren't going to put their cup upside down. I knew that enough about them. And so this one student put his cup sideways. And I asked him about that the next day in time that we had discussing. And he's like, I just have questions. How can I commit? I don't really know what it is, and so we talked and he got, I answered a couple simple questions for him, and he came not knowing anything. His mom, there was a Bible listed on the packing list. His mom bought him a King James Bible, which, and he was trying to read that. Earlier in the week, he had told me, why don't we just have this club thing where they talk about Jesus? We have club and I go, why? Do you like all the games and skits? He goes, no, I just want to kind of hear more about God. And I'm like, which in my mind, I was like, he's a big football player. I'd coached him when he was in JV, and his friends had signed up and all dropped off, but he came. And he said, and so anyway, it kind of flipped my whole thinking about him because I was just, I did not think that was going to be your answer, and why you were doing this. And so I kind of knew that, it's just a matter of time for you of getting information and so on. And that was earlier in the week. And then by the end of the week, he was like, well, I really want God in my life. I will commit as much as I can to as much as I know. And I'm like, well, that's what I do every day, and so, we really just, God really answered my prayer and yours for really, because we know it's miraculous that anyone, like that one student said to him, he's like, it's really risky to do that. I go, yeah, it is. It is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And so, we just saw so much fruit and just evidence of it, as Jordan alluded to, no trip, even when we have a lot of kids say yes to Jesus and stuff, are they getting their Bibles out? Because of camp will give them a Bible if they don't have one. And so they all have a Bible going home. And nobody gets that out and reads it in the airport or the bus. They read the book. Some of those guys had finished most of the book of John by the time we got the 3-hour bus trip, and then finished that. And they liked doing it because there were leaders around that they could go, what in the world? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word. What is this talking about? This seems a little mystical. And I'm like, yeah, it sure is. And anyway. So it just was odd to see those guys. And one of the kids, who I didn't refer to in the first little bit, he was one of the major troublemakers in the middle school camp the year before. But because none of his other buddies went, he was just really there for the right reasons and really got hold of what was actually being talked about. And Yeah. Danny would know him and would have made his life miserable last summer, but he was a blessing this summer. And as a matter of fact, I saw him weightlifting yesterday, and he said, he goes, yeah. I go, what'd you do today? And he's like, some of us just got together and went downtown and had a Bible study. I'm like, just crazy. Yeah, well, they did meet some girls down there. Yeah. Just guys that didn't have a Bible before this camp. Certainly wouldn't have been studying it. So anyway, such a blessing, and such a blessing, a outcome of prayer. Because it just is a miracle. Each one of them, each one of those kids, because it, as he said, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't, and it's just their heart is, they know there's more to life, and Jesus, in that simple message of Jesus and what he did for them, and he's still alive, and that he can give them purpose and meaning and hope in their life, no matter what the circumstances, and they get that. They can get that. So thank you so much for your faithfulness in praying.
One more story, unless there's somebody else. Yeah, it was really, 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 really cool seeing those guys read their Bibles. This one guy Ken was talking about read 21 chapters in John, the whole book of John, on the way home. He finished the whole book. And he got off the plane and he found me and he goes, Jeanette, I finished. And I go, yes, good job. And I was sitting by him in the airport, and he was on John 11, and he had just finished John 10. And I go, wait till you read John 11, because it's Lazarus raising from the dead. And then he's sitting there reading, and I'm sitting right by him, and he looks over at me. He's coming out with the grave clothes on. He was just like incredulous. He was like, what in the world? I go, I told you it was going to be good. Anyway, it was just really just sweet times with these kids. It's just such a blessing. But I want to tell you about one of the girls, too. There was one girl, in fact, Curtis, who's the pastor of this church, his daughter went with us, Becca. She's an incredible Christian girl. She invited 4 friends from Livermore High. So there were 4 girls from Livermore High. Jordan and I were in the cabin with them. They were so precious. But Becca's very best friend is Sophia. And so Sophia and Becca started hanging out, and Sophia does not come from a Christian family at all. And Becca's influence was rubbing off on her. She's like, yeah, I want to be like Becca. I want to follow Jesus. So she came on our girls' retreat, and this was, you were there, right? Yeah. Jordan, me, Mindy took, in the winter we took them on the girls' retreat. And this girl, Sophia, I go, now you guys really need to go to Lost Canyon. Because Sophia had never been to an outreach camp. She goes, Jeanette, I could never do that. I go, why? She goes, I cannot afford $1,200. I go, we will help you. You can do it. Well, she took it to heart. She goes, okay, I'm going to do it. She raised all her money. She did every work project. She did every job. She did every fundraiser. And then we do these pink flamingos and put pink flamingos in people's yards. She did it for months. I didn't even have to help her. She raised the whole thing, but she worked really hard, hours and hours and hours, raising her money. And then she finally got to go to camp. Well, I just figured she was already a Christian because she reads her Bible. She told me she wants to follow Christ, even from the beginning. But she never really heard the whole gospel. And so this week, she just put the whole thing together in a way that she had never heard before. And at the end of the week, they let the kids, it's called Say So, they let the kids stand up and they say, hi, my name is Sophia, and I accepted Christ this week. And I didn't think she was really going to do it because I figured she'd already done it before. But no, she stood up and put a stake in the ground and said, I want to follow Jesus. And it was so, so cool. And then she came over to me afterwards, and we were both just crying, and I hugged her for a long, long time. And I'm like, this sweet girl has worked so hard because she really wanted to hear it, and she did, and her life will never be the same. She is just such a precious girl with a deep heart for God. but she really didn't know much going in, so it's really, really cool. So that's her, and all the Livermore girls had an incredible experience, along with the Granada girls, and it was just so great to be with all of them. The kids are really connected, and that's kind of a word Ken's been praying. Give us connection with the kids, but also with each other. And that's why they're meeting downtown. They just want to be together, and they have felt that Christian community. So we've invited a bunch of them to go to Cedar Grove tomorrow morning. We'll see how many come to church, which will be another kind of step for some of them. We'll see. We also had 4 boys from Granada. This is so good. 4 boys from Granada that committed, that had become Christians at a Young Life camp earlier. They're all going to be seniors, and they committed to be on the work crew, which means they were serving for 3 weeks. They gave up 3 weeks of their summer to serve at the camp, and they were serving in the dining hall, serving us meals. And they were a huge example of high school kids serving Christ. So our kids were like really impressed by them. All 4 of them grew like they were having the time of their life, even though they worked really, really hard every day. But connecting with other high school kids that know the Lord, it was nothing like it. They are completely changed. So that was really, really, really cool. And they're going to be seniors at Granada this next year. So that'll be a really good group of leadership kind of kids helping us with Young Life Club. So praise the Lord. Super awesome.
Testimony night in church. I wish this was my testimony, but who knows Dan and Patty Lux? Right. So Dan just retired from the Marine Corps, 32 years. And when he was in the glide path, he actually reached out to me and asked me to see if I could make some connections for him where I work. And they were like, oh, yeah, we want to talk to this guy. And also where Dan retired from. And I saw him, and these are high-end, big dollar jobs. And so he was looking for something. And I saw him the other day, a week ago or so, and I said, hey, Dan, so where'd you end up? What job did you take? He goes, I'm the Tri-Valley Director for Child Evangelism Fellowship. Oh, no way. Serious. No way. And you know what? It's just like the guy, so a full colonel in the Marine Corps, somebody explained this to me, they actually have more authority than an army and a general because the command authority. So like, if he picked up the phone and said, launch the planes, they're going to launch the planes. And for a guy like that, with that capacity, he says, I want to serve children for Jesus. And it's like, it's not my testimony, but it's something that's noteworthy to be shared with the group here. So anyway, and I do have a testimony, and the strongest times I've seen the Lord work, the Spirit move, is when the body came together. And we had a lot of projects overseas we were doing. And I'll tell you what, if ministries can work together and realize that the harvest is the Lord's, we're just the workers. And in the mission field, it gets to be kind of like fleas fighting over the patch of a dog they might be on or something. But when they can get past all that stuff and realize, hey, the harvest, we've got to work for the master and the Lord of the harvest and bring the harvest in. Yeah. So anyway, I went to a conference with him for child evangelism. I was really impressed with their models and everything like that. But anyway, that's my testimony that I wanted to share that I'd heard. Anyway.
Finding the medallion. I don't know if I told you about that. So that was one of the guys. Jeanette had him learning John 3:16. He's been he maybe didn't know any other verse in the Bible except John 3:16. But he found that medallion and